Welcome back to episode 9, and we're welcomed today by Mr. David Krug himself. And David, I know
Hey.
you are, and I know you're a songwriter, you're a music producer, designer, life coach. If you could tell us more about yourself, a quick introduction, we'd love to hear more.
Yeah, I'm not so much of a I don't like to hold monologues about myself, so I look forward to questions. But yeah, I guess I'm mostly known for I built a skate park in Sweden, and I love to skate. Like I've been skateboarding since I was 12, and I've been living a little bit I grew up in Sweden. I've been living in South Africa for 4 years, in United States 2 years, and yeah, now Asia 2 years also. So moving around a little bit.
Awesome. So a bit nomadic, sounds like. Awesome.
Kind
And
of, but I'm surprised myself with being here for a year now. So that's the
yeah,
longest I've been anywhere for a while.
awesome. Yeah, so maybe you'll settle down a bit. Awesome. Well, I know you do a lot, a lot of creative, related endeavors and projects. And so when it comes to, music, coaching, um, how does that how does that affect you and like what value has that brought to your life, would you say, just kind of those creative pursuits? And how do you see that impacting the community around you as you kind of travel around?
Can you repeat that, please?
Yeah,
I'm
so
sorry.
I know you're involved in music production and coaching, and how would you say that impacts you and your personal life, and how does that impact the kind of communities around you when it comes to things like skating, music? What has that done? What value has that brought to you
Hmm,
in your life?
that's so hard to answer. I don't know if I have impact, but I think the most impact I've had is through the park I built because
Mm,
there I actually had like a filmer for a while who was interviewing people in the park and asking what it meant to them and stuff like that. And for a lot of them, it's a favorite place that they go like multiple times a week and have done for years, you know. And some people got sponsored because of skateboarding in the park every day and gotten really good and then sponsored so I guess that's the most impacting so far that I know of. And then I've had this empowerment side that has had like over the years tens of thousands of views, but I don't really know how people are impacted, by visiting that site and watching the videos. And yeah, yeah, yeah. I can say that I do want to create a lot of impact. And the songs I've been writing this year, or actually last year, like that I haven't released yet, they're all about like life lessons that I learned in my life that when I learned them, I was like, oh my God, why don't they teach this stuff in school? Because this is stuff that everyone, needs to know in order to be able to be happy, in order to be able to communicate and so on. Some people get it from their parents, but a lot of people don't, something like, so I wanted to get that into the school system. I've been working on and off through my whole life, or through the last 25 years to get that into the school system. But yeah, the top politicians don't want it. A lot of the other politicians want it.
yeah, so
So I
adding
hope,
on to, oh, sorry, keep going, David.
no, so I hope to be able to impact people's music in the way that like people who listen to music, it's not just about like music vibes. It's also about like learning about life, little life hacks, things like that improve people's lives, hopefully.
Yeah, that's great. And then like thinking about that further, I want to ask you another question about like, because like you mentioned a lot of these ideas about communicating through music and spreading these kind of like worldly ideals and things like empathy, kindness, and positivity. Like a lot of your songs are about that. So could you share more about like how music has can impact mental health for not you, community, and how you believe your songs can influence people? Just discuss, yeah, talk more about music, mental health, and all those sorts of things. Yeah.
Yeah. I can tell you how like the lessons that I embedded in my songs, how they impacted me when I first learned these things. And throughout my life, I've been a pretty happy person throughout like childhood and everything. But I've had also periods that were kind of like I could be happy half of the day and I could be depressed half of the day. Or and I haven't really talked about this in a official thing like a podcast. But I don't know. Now that I said that, I have to say it, right? When I was 9 years old, I um, I ate a whole bottle of pills, sleeping pills that would have killed me if they didn't pump my stomach. And I wrote a note like about my inheritance. I think it was like something like $130 I owed at the time. And yeah, so on where that would go. And yeah, so I can say that I didn't understand that, didn't know that there was stomach pumping when I was 9 years old, right? So when they saw the letter, they sent me with an ambulance to the hospital. They pumped my stomach, like emptied everything that was in the stomach, and I woke up after I think it was something like 48 hours or something like that. And throughout my life, like I was kind of I was doing okay, and my friends didn't think about me as a depressed person, but like when hardship hit me, then I didn't have the tools to deal with that. Like I didn't have the tools to like put it in a perspective where how much will this affect me like at a later stage in my life? How much will this affect me like 1 year from now? Instead, I would just go into like thinking about it over and over again and like making it bigger and bigger and bigger, which is something a lot of people do. And that's something that is like just makes you more and more angry. If it's anger we're talking about, it makes you more and more sad. If it's sadness we're talking about, if we talk about like insecurities, then it makes you more and more insecure the more you think about those things. And what I learned, like as I started like to study and discuss psychology and things like that, is there's ways out of all that, and there's ways to like break that pattern. And it's kind of like when you practice your brain almost like you work out a muscle, so that the more you practice those tactics, you just become more and more stable and more like, yeah, now I think in the last year I didn't have like one depressed minute, you know. So and it's been like mostly like that. Like I've had a few times when I had like maybe I lost like a huge amount of money or something like that, and I got a little bit low for a while. But mostly through the last 25 years since I learned this, I've got better at communicating because I don't it takes really, really a lot to make me angry. So when I'm calm, I'm a better communicator. Um, and that being able to communicate well landed my job with building the park for Stockholm City. And I know for a fact, like if I was at my old communication level, I would have gotten angry and frustrated so many times that I would have blown that. Like I would never have gotten that park built. And yeah, you just make more friends. Life just gets so much easier when you have like you control your own mindset.
No, that's incredible. Thank you for that amazing, vulnerable story, David. So
It,
I was thinking about the topic of the one's environment. So how do you leverage your communication to hack your environment? Because not all communities are inclusive. And I think you design inclusive communities. There's different types of communities at home, at work, and you live in different places. So what kind of role does the community, the environment play in mental health, and how do you leverage communication in that?
Damn, your
Does
questions are complicated. Is that so? How do I leverage the community? Which community? The community around me, in order
like
to.
I mean, words are powerful, and we can either use them to create chaos in our environment, or we can also kind of bring forth peace, because you talked about emotional regulation. And you could think about the digital environment or the in-person environment, and you lived in different cultures. So you've seen different environments, and just wondering, like, how does the environment impact people's mental health?
Mm. Yeah, that's an interesting question. Like, because, I come from Sweden, and a lot of people are actually a little bit depressed there, especially in the winter when we don't have so much sun and all that. But also, when I came to Kenya the first time, um, I was so wowed how people who are living so simply, in just little huts, it can be made of cardboard or it can be made out usually it's like kind of simple bricks, and there's no paint inside. It's just like bricks and then a bed and then, maybe a stove inside or outside, and um and they are so happy and they're like jumping around. They're smiling like these huge wide smiles, and they have this really, really tight family bond where like in Sweden, like in a lot of families, I think the kids come home and they sit and play video games, or they like maybe they talk with their parents over dinner, but not so much. The parents are maybe stressed and so on. So in terms of that kind of like family environment, I've been thinking a lot about that. How happiness has so little to do with money and so much to do with like how you hang out with your family, and also like the way that we separate, like we move out when we are like 18, 20 or something, whereas they can stay together for so long, and then usually their grandma and their grandpa also lives with them, so the kids hang out with them all the time as well, which is not normal in the Western society. And I think that living with your family like that, I think it brings a lot of security and you get really grounded, compared to those who are more like living in their own thoughts or in their video game thoughts. Yeah, the question, but
No, it does. A family is everything, and it just the different type of cultures can contribute more positively to that cohesion, um, and less in the video game world. Yeah.
and then if you count in sun in environment, if you think about like the whole, nature environment, like it's kind of it's a little bit sad with like Sweden. Like, yeah, some people are really good at going out, taking on a walk with like a lot of winter clothes on, and in the winter as well. Um, but a lot of people I've known has been really happy every summer, and so depressed sometimes in the winter that they actually go into like the I don't know. So English is my native language, but like the psych ward, like the ER for psychology, for mental, distress, and are literally like they're literally happy in the summer and sad every winter. And yeah, I guess that's something I think that like you could also work against. Like if you had the government could, for example, make light therapy more common and more easily and cheap available for their communities, things like that. But no, yeah, instead it's more like big pharma is taking over and selling medicines.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like everyone just wants to put a band-aid on it and not look at the root issue. Like you were saying, obviously we need the sun or vitamin D, and that affects us biologically, and we need that to be happy, to feel, you know, everything is connected, the mind to the body. And
Yeah, vitamin D is a
uh,
really good point too. Like I think like
yeah.
75% or way over 50% are deficient in vitamin C, deficient in
Mm.
zinc, which are like two of the like most important vitamins for your immune system and also how you feel, There was one time in my life when I was I think it was 2016. when I was really low in zinc. I was like down on 6, and doctors told me that was okay, but like I had felt like really low for a while, and I questioned if it was okay. And like the same day or the second day that I just took liquid zinc, I just like felt everything flip right away. So I was just like feeling happier and calmer and just like, oh, life is fun again, you know? Because before that I wasn't really feeling sad. I was just feeling that it wasn't fun, you know?
Wow, yeah,
So yeah,
and I think so many, especially
yeah.
Americans, are
I
so
guess I'll have
deficient.
to put that in.
Yeah. Oh, sorry about that. Go ahead.
It's okay. I think that there's like a time lag in between us,
Oh,
but yeah, I guess I'll have to put vitamin D and zinc in a song eventually too.
yeah. Yeah, and it's crazy. I mean, how many Americans are deficient in, vitamins, minerals that are all impacting, your mental health as well as physical health. So, it makes sense to address those areas. If I think first thing I would advise everyone to do, is just test for your levels, see where you're at with your
Yeah,
vitamins, your minerals, and yeah, starting there is
I
a
could have
great
done
way
that
to.
today.
Oh, you did that today?
I
Awesome.
told a friend today that yeah, that's what you should go and test. You know? I agree,
Yeah,
100%.
right. And when you were in Kenya and we're seeing kind of that simpler lifestyle, did that cause you to kind of change the way you lived or your lifestyle? Did you kind of take away anything from that?
Yeah, let's see. This was 2011, and I think, oh, yeah, that was right then where I was actually like in my peak of being disappointed in the Western society. We don't have to go into exactly why, but I can just say like corruption and yeah, being a little bit disappointed in yeah, how safe you are. Like I had this vision or this thought that the Western countries was a safe place to be, but it wasn't that safe. And I kind of wanted to get away from that, and I really loved like also in Kenya you had the nature, right? And in the nature you see even more like how happy animals are together, you know, like in their families. You see like big flocks of monkeys like playing together, like they're caring for their kids, and they're like, but they're all in a big group, and they just hang out, eat, play, you know. And you could say elephants too, for example, you know, they walk around like 10, 20 elephants, sometimes more, and they, you know, just have fun together, you know, spray each other with water when they drink, and they're like, so yeah, I was really into, my goal then was to buy land in Kenya, right next to the reserve, and make a fruit forest pretty much. But it took a few tries. Like in Kenya, I looked at 40 plots, but I ended up like I think 39 of those tried to scam me, and the 40th, uh, I got threatened to life like that. If I was gonna buy it, move in there, I would get killed basically with like poison darts. Um, so so that was like, and then I learned that a Westerner can't even own land there. So then I kind of like withdrew, and I went next time, and a year after I think I went to Tanzania, and yeah, there it didn't happen. I got really sick from something, like a bite, and then a few years later, I went to South Africa, and I had built a car in Sweden with a skateboard ramp on it. And I shipped that car to South Africa. And I'm just like, okay, third time's a charm, right? I'm just gonna go for it. So put that car in a container, shipped it to South Africa. And I went there actually first with a girlfriend. Uh, and she joined me for like 3 weeks. We just traveled around and dived. We had just taken scuba diving certificates, and we like dived with sharks and seals and turtles. And then when she left, yeah, the car came, and I traveled around. And let's see, what was I gonna say about that? Yeah, we were talking about environment still, huh? Um, yeah, I don't know. You just ask me. Ask me when I ask me, bro.
Yeah, and I'll touch on one more thing and then hand it off to Max. But skateboarding specifically, do you see that as kind of an art form, kind of a it kind of
Yeah,
stems from
it's so many
surfing,
things.
but
Skateboard is so many things, and it's different things to different people, and that's kind of the charm with it, that everyone does with it what they want to do with it. Uh, but it's definitely an art form for many, and people have their own style, their own taste in tricks and lines, like with the way you put tricks after each other, and um, you can like a lot of the time you can see who it is. Just like even if you see someone from the back skateboarding, you can see who it is just from how they do it. And but it's also therapy for a lot of people. Like a lot of people, therapy and meditation, because like once like while you are actually on the board skateboarding, you can't really, think about hardships or think about anything else. You're just like focusing on what kind of motoric move you're gonna make with your body, and then when you land it, you just feel like it's a really good feeling because you don't know when you're in the air if you're gonna land it and roll away or not. So it's a relief every time you land it and roll away, and when you don't, it's like a lesson. It's like, okay, I did a little bit wrong. I landed upside down. I fell, and it felt like this, and it didn't kill me, and I can try again. So it's also like a lesson for life. How like when you try something and it doesn't go well, okay, it doesn't kill me. I try again and shift, how I'm doing it. And what else is skateboarding? It's a meeting ground. You it's like what do you call that? It's like integration between ages and colors and where you live. For example, I built the park I built for Stockholm City. I built it in a suburb that had very bad reputation, and I told Stockholm City that if we build this park, like while I was trying to get them to fund it, like you'll have people coming from like all of the city. You will have people coming from like the rich parts, the middle class parts. You'll have people coming from other countries, and they're gonna talk to kids here, and you're gonna have this great integration. That's what happens. Like it happened also. It's been like people from all over the world there, and like mingling with the kids there, and professionals that come and just mingle with normal suburb kids and Stockholm kids. So you got that part of skateboarding, and then you have the physical part, right? It's exercise, so helps you keep you young, and it's also play. It's like a game, so like a common thing you can see in skateboarders as they get older is that they still have that playful mentality a lot of the time, where they will also climb a tree, or they will also like do flips into water, or it doesn't matter if they're like 50 or 60, as long as of course it varies, but like typically more playful, and maybe even more playful with businesses too. Like just start, a lot of people go into filming because they filmed so much when they skated, and they go into art because they drew art for their skateboard, or on their skateboard, and then they become artists. So much. I could probably talk for another hour about that, but yeah.
Yeah, no, that's really cool, especially like thinking about how skateboarding kind of like parallels to like your lifestyle and just how you go about anything you do. The process of kind of just it's like the entrepreneurial spirit in you and the idea of just wanting to bring people together and make an impact through whatever you do. Um, I know for engagement purposes, I know you have a story with Shaun White, so if you want to share that really quickly, we can make this a little reel
Are you
later
to
and then
tag him?
get some views on this with both of us or something. And then I'll ask you another question, but it's a cool story too, probably.
Yeah, no, I mean, so I was skateboarding in Venice Beach Park, Venice Beach Skate Park, and I don't know, it was just like normally when you skate, you just you just skate and then you try something. I was trying to do a trick over this fence. There's a place we can like go out of the boat and over a fence, and it was just this dude that was like, "Oh, are you going for a melon there?" Yeah, 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 yeah. And I didn't think much of it, like didn't recognize him, and then yeah, I just went back and tried a few times, and then I think I got it, and then yeah, and then we just started chatting about I don't even remember what, and then after chatting for a while, it's like, "Hey, aren't you Shaun White?" And yeah, it was. And I thought it was something too that like as the second I realized who it was, it got less natural, you know? And that's actually a lesson. Like next time one, I'm not even gonna point out that I realize who it is, because that like I think he kind of liked that I didn't seem to know who he was, because that made him more relaxed, you know? Because a lot of other people around were just like, you know, hanging there around, like, and watching him extra much, and I was just focused on my trick, and I think that's why he talked to me, to be honest. And then yeah, and then we just had a skate session. Like I practiced a lot to make 3 tricks I wanted, and he probably made like 20 tricks or 50 tricks just flying around. But it was a good time. Filmed a little bit, but I haven't watched it since actually. This was in 2018.
That's really, yeah, that's really interesting. Really cool that you like didn't know him, recognize him too until after, and then probably for him too, like he just wants to pursue his passions, and it's like being that's like the bad side of being a, like a well-known figure, celebrity at that point. Like you can't just like have like casual conversations and like just like do what you love to do. It seemed
Yeah,
like yeah,
yeah,
yeah, I wanted to ask you a quick
yeah. A
question
little bit
about.
after that, everyone started. I was gonna say, yeah, a little bit after that, people started to like, because he was kind of warming up, and so people hadn't realized who he was. But then when he started skateboarding for real, more people realized who he was, you know. So then people started to go out and wanted to take pictures with him, and you know, things like that. Which he's a cool, humble guy, so he was happy to do all that. But it was just like, yeah, maybe realize that he probably appreciated a lot that period before also, when it's just like chilling.
Yeah,
But I'm sure both parts are fun though.
no, for sure. Yeah, it's interesting points. Um, yeah, I wanted to ask you a quick question about just you seem like a very alternative medicine kind of person, kind of what we were talking about, and you have some simple hacks, simple ways to like boost mood based on like besides traditional medicine, what have you noticed? We talked a bit about sunlight, vitamin D, and all these different things. Are there any other specific practices you integrate into your life that you think more people could do? Like you were drinking smoothies the other day too. Whatever. Yeah, any
Yeah,
sort of like
yeah, yeah,
specific things you
yeah.
think could
Okay,
be
I'm gonna
simple,
think about
simple
what do I
fixes, you
put
know?
in, what other regulars that I use. Yeah, so first of all, uh, one thing that really, you know, like I think we all have like things that just like they come around and your life just like changes completely. Like one thing for me was when I was 25 and I learned this psychology stuff. But then another thing was when I was 35, and how did that happen? That was actually I started hearing about veganism. I mean, I've heard about it before, but when I heard veganism, I thought of like people throwing pig's blood at McDonald's windows and stuff like that. So I didn't really, and I really didn't really understand so much. And I've had vegetarians around me, but I never really understood like why, besides like feeling bad for the animals. And I thought that we needed to eat animals because if we don't, it's going to be so much work. You have to eat like the right amount of beans and the right amount of nuts. And if you don't, you're going to basically deteriorate and you know, fall apart and be super weak, which is not really the case at all. But that's kind of like something that I think big business has put out there to scare people to not, you know, so not so many to go vegan. And I think that's also a little bit less of that now. This was when I heard that, it was like, yeah, 20 years ago or more. But then now more and more people of in the world population are vegan, so it's you can't really hold that up anymore, 100%. But okay, to the point, I saw this clip with a guy skateboarding who was a raw vegan chef. His name is Chris Kendall, and and he talked about all the benefits, like how when you go raw vegan and just live on fruit, you have like better ankles, better knees, like less pain, faster recovery from injuries, things like that. So I tried it out. I just actually, like, I think the day after or something, I just like went all fruit. And before that, I've eaten like I was maybe eating a couple of bananas a week, but then I was just like went and bought all these fruits and I tried it out and I just completely changed everything. It changed my mood. Went like this was in the winter and I was like a little bit low and there was like something bad going on in my life as well. So, but like I just relaxed. It just like the worry just disappeared and I was just like oh, it will all be okay. And also I had been like for my whole life up until I was 35, I'd always been a little bit round in the face. And I wished that I had a slimmer face. And it literally happened in like 1.5 weeks. It was so fast. It was so fast that like and I hadn't been chubby on the body or anything, but it's just like in the face. And it just disappeared in like 1.5 weeks. And I had someone ask me if I had anorexia or something because I was getting slimmer. And and it was funny because I was expecting to get fatter because I had seen disinformation about like it's so much sugar you get fat. So which was disinformation from FDA. So it was them debating someone. And the FDA also said you would die if you ate only fruit. Um, but yeah, so I was super stoked about that, and kilos were dropped too, and then I was just feeling energetic and happy. So I was really surprised. So I was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna continue. And after like I don't know exactly how long, but I think like a month or two, I'd had like arthritis in my both ankles and in my knees. So I'd been afraid to jump from anything higher than like half a meter for like years, from for 15 years. And that pain just disappeared. So like all of a sudden I could jump from like 1.5 meter, 2 meters without like having any pain. And also the pain when I went out of bed in the morning disappeared. And like when I used to walk, I would hear my ankles crack, kind of my knees crack, but that just disappeared. And yeah, it was really cool, and the skin changed too. Skin got better. But yeah, so that's one thing for your question there. Like, just try eating like try living on fruit and a little bit of lettuce or something but like lots of fruit as much as you want. Like for just don't force yourself. Just don't force it. Just like okay, I'm gonna try it for a day or two, three, and do that when you're really happy, when you have sun and you have vacation or something, because it's harder otherwise, if it's winter and so on. So that's one thing that like I've been to fruit festivals with hundreds of people who live mode, and they all have different like stories of how they had like a lot of people had like illnesses that there is no cure for, they say, but they actually became well when they went on fruit. So that's one thing. And then it's also very anti-inflammatory. So cancer, for example, uh, cancer needs a little bit of acidic or like alkaline environment in the blood in order to thrive and grow. And when you live on fruit and veggies, raw veggies, then your blood turns. I don't know exactly how to say this in English, but it turns more towards the alkaline neutral side. So you have, I think the value is around 8. When it comes to cancer usually comes with acidosis, which is your blood and body environment is very acidic, which is raised when you eat highly processed foods and meats and some other things. And I would encourage anyone to use, like, we have AI now. And if you ask, for example, AI, like what kind of things, what are the top 10 things that make the body environment more acidic? And it will tell you, and then you can ask it to look at like PubMed studies and things like that. And then when you go on a fruit diet, you become more alkaline. So it will at least slow down those things, and it will slow down inflammation also, because inflammation also thrives in an acidic environment. And then when it comes to herbs, there are so many, but like one thing that I would encourage people to look into is moringa. Moringa is like a tree, and almost all parts are used for some kind of medicine. You can use the roots, you can use the bark, you can use the wood, you can use the leaves. So I'm taking moringa leaves right now, and for time purposes, I just encourage people to ask for the top 10 benefits of moringa leaves, for example. Ask ChatGPT. And then one thing that I wish I knew earlier is that like a teaspoon of cacao per day, if you keep that up for 6 months, it actually like makes wrinkles less deeper and things like that. And if you keep it up for 3 months, it also has more like conserving effect. And that's like more for you. But then ginger and turmeric are super good for like so many things that has to do with inflammation. Those are pretty common, so I think people know that. There is I almost need to go and check. I'm looking this way because that's where I have all my herbs. But cilantro is helps detoxify the body. A lot of fruits in general helps detoxify the body. Oh yeah, okay, these are important ones right now actually. Bromelain, which you find in pineapple stems, if that's actually very protective if sensitive subject, but if you have too much spike protein and you want to work against that, there are three things you can eat, or actually there's more, but zinc and vitamin D3 we already talked about. But then bromelain, which you find in pineapple stems, and you can also get it as in a pill form. But that's really good. Nattokinase, which comes from a Japanese bean, I think fermented. Nattokinase, you can also get that in pill form. And then what's the other one? Yeah, turmeric has it's called curcumin. The active ingredient in turmeric is really good too. So if you put these three together and you do them every day, and then with turmeric, if you do that together with fenugreek seeds, which is kind of like little hard seeds, you put them in water for like 1 to 2 days and they become soft seeds. And you do like a teaspoon of that also, and then you do black pepper. Then those two things together with the turmeric it brings up of curcumin in your body exponentially. And what else? There are so many things, but maybe I can just send a list of my favorite things, and we can drop them in the description or something. But those are
Awesome.
some favorites. Yeah.
It's awesome. And yeah, we'll definitely link that below.
Two more.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. Spirulina chlorella is actually something I haven't done for so long, but I found out that they contain so much good stuff. There's so much chlorophyll, and chlorophyll is really good for so many things. You can also ask ChatGPT about that. But they also contain other substances that keeps you aging slower. So really good for people who just want to use as much as they can of their life. And then barley grass juice powder is also really good because it contains like pretty much all the minerals and yeah, pretty much all the minerals and trace minerals we need. And there's actually one brand that I get this three from, but I can't remember the name of the brand right now, but I might put it down there because Chris, who I mentioned before, he did a lot of research, and spirulina and chlorella can be really contaminated with heavy metals and things like that. So you want to make sure it's a brand where they test it regularly, so you don't buy something toxic.
Yeah, I've heard about, I think algae too is, I think I've heard of something related to algae being good for you, but no, that's a good point
Yeah,
because
spirulina
those
and
plants are,
chlorella, by the way. Yeah.
what's that?
Spirulina and chlorella, they are both algae.
Oh
Yes,
yeah, yeah. And so
spirulina and chlorella are both.
yeah, and I guess
But
the
yeah,
issue
I've
is
heard that
there,
sea moss also.
right? The issue there is it sucks up all that, a lot of water and I guess nutrients, but as well as I guess pollutants as well. So that's where there can be issues.
Yeah. And then
Oh,
something actually that I felt like I thought it was kind of like bogus or exaggerated because they were so small bottles and they were so expensive. So I actually heard about this like 5, 6 years ago, but I never tried it. And that's like essential oils. But those are also very different in quality. But recently I just like bought a few just I don't know, I wanted to try, and I bought one called frankincense and one called peppermint. And I had this really, really stubborn cough. Like sometimes if I get like sore throat, I can have a stubborn cough after. So kind of like a dry cough. And I think actually it was during the discussion with ChatGPT, you mentioned those two. So I just like take some of those oils, I mix them in coconut oil so that they're not so strong. And then I just like breathe them in, like held a spoon like this and just breathe them in. And it took like I think 1 day of that, doing that whenever I coughed, and it disappeared for me. And then I heard a neighbor here, have a cough too. So I prepared it for them too, just one spoon for them. And she was also well the next day. So it's pretty fascinating with that stuff. And and fasting is something else I heard about. I think we've all heard about fasting, and we think it's kind of weird, right? It's like, why would you not eat? Like, how is that going to help anything? But when you really look into it, there's so much good stuff that comes from that. And I think people are scared to talk about it because it can go wrong. It can turn into anorexia. And if you do it like without proper knowledge, it can be a little bit, if you have a heart condition, it can be a little bit dangerous. So you have to like be careful, and you have to like find out, like read about what you're supposed to do, and so on. But that can help for so many things. It can help against cancer because it starts a process where your stem cells start attacking sick cells, or and like kind of like consuming them, so they disappear. And then it also starts there's all these different stages of fasting depending on how many days you do it, where they start different types of cleansing of the body and restructuring of the body and stuff like that. So yeah, that's definitely something that you can ask also chat GPT about, but that it's gonna give you a million warnings that you shouldn't do this and you should consult your doctor and so on. So, and your doctor doesn't know anything about it, so it's kind of ironic, but it's definitely something I wish I knew earlier. But yeah,
awesome. Yeah,
I ended up
nature
doing it for, yeah. My
nature is
first fast
medicine,
ended
and
up
I
being
think this,
15 days.
yeah. Oh, 10
Oh,
days.
wow.
Wow. I've done I've
16.
done I've done 3 days, but even with that, I was kind of feeling it. And I was drinking coconut water at the time, so I guess it wasn't a true fast. But yeah, one thing I would have palpitations when I think on like day 2 or day 3 when I was trying to sleep. So that was kind of, well, not like hard palpitations, but I could feel the kind of the
Yeah, I had
weakness.
a little bit too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a little bit too in the beginning, but then once the body like switched over, I didn't have that again. Then I got a little bit tired and so on. Not tired, sleepy tired, but like long walks was obviously like a little bit harder. But I also I had this thing in my sinus before, and I think it could be because like when you're in Asia, there's like it's very common that there's like mold somewhere in almost every apartment. It's really hard to find one that doesn't have it unless it's like completely new. And and I had like this, I've always also had this thing actually, no matter what country I was in. If I try to exercise hard, let's say I lift weights or something like that, calisthenics, and I try to keep my mouth closed and only breathe through my nose, it's kind of hard to breathe. And I know this is very common because you know how trendy it is with like these things that open up your nose, or there's all these little gadgets and things like that. But the interest after that fast, or during that fast, that cleared up, and I can now. It's easier to sleep with my mouth closed, and also like do any exercise. I can run with my mouth closed. Maybe not for too long, but I can definitely do like 10, 15 reps of something with my mouth closed easy, and that has been good now for months since that one fast. And then another thing was like I had this little piece of stubborn fat on my belly, and I've had that for my whole life from like age 13 to age 49, and that disappeared with a fast. And even though I ate kind of heavily when my parents came over, we went to a lot of stuff. They were here for a month, and I still didn't regain that fat. So it's like took care of a piece of fat that I just been like there forever. So that was kind of interesting too.
Yeah, fasting, like you're saying, herbs, fruit, it's all around us, the usually the solutions for any health issues. It's just in traditional medicine, or at least American medicine in particular, they're always wanting to treat the symptoms, to put a band-aid on it. But yeah, I think it's nature that really
Yeah.
is regenerative,
And then there's one more thing that is really
Yeah.
simple, and that's the water. That like even though you hear from whoever it is, your government or your testing, that the water is safe to drink, it's usually safe to drink, but it's usually has contaminants in it, and they can actually affect things. And I would like my personal guess when it comes to people who have arthritis and like stiff ankles and like knees that hurt and things like that. Like I would guess that like a huge amount, like over 50% of those is just from bad drinking water or bad food with like things in it. Because I've felt even now when I'm on fruit, like it went good when I went on fruit, and I didn't filter my water or anything then. But then I moved to different places, and I've noticed that as I live in some places, for example, I lived in Malmö, and I got that arthritis back, even though I was still living on fruit. And I was like, what is this? And then I started drinking or buying bottled water, and it just disappeared. And I had that in another city as well. And there I could actually taste a little bit of like metal in the water. And there, one day there, and I had arthritis, basically symptoms where like I couldn't bend my ankles and knees okay and stuff. So yeah, it's I would really recommend people also to use a distiller or a really good filter for their water, unless they know 100% sure that it's clean.
Awesome. David, thank you so much for sharing all that, all those words of wisdom, especially when it comes to just healing yourself with what's around us. We're kind of plucked out of our natural environment, the whole industrial revolution and everything, disconnected us
Yeah.
from what truly heals us, and that's all around us. So thank you for sharing that. And for our listeners, where can they go to find more about you and your journey, your work? Where can they go to see that?
Yeah, so thank you first of all for having me. It was fun. And to find me, David KRUGW on Instagram, and davidkrug.com is my clothing store, but I'll try to link everything from there eventually. And I think if you have those two, then there's an email list you can sign up for there. And if you signed up for that sooner or later, I'll start emailing that with some info about the other things also. And
Yeah,
also, if
thank
you
you,
Awesome.
follow my
David.
Instagram, you'll probably see the other things sooner or later also.
I appreciate this conversation, David, because it's pretty nice outside where I'm at today. I'm definitely going to the skate park with my unicycle, and they talk about a third
Yeah,
place that is missing, right? That is the third place we can meet people, and it is so cathartic to be in that state of flow. And I've also dabbled with music, and I believe we all have a song or a poem in our heart. It's just a matter of getting it out there. And you seem to healed greatly from whatever mental health conditions that you struggled with through like seeing different cultures, through diet, through play and exercise. So I love everything that we discussed. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners right now on any of these topics about mental resilience?
well, yeah, this one thing actually that's really interesting, that that everything, I mean, of course you can have physical things that can create, like, you can have a zinc deficiency, but like when it comes to, like, if everything in your body is okay, like almost all sadness can, or distress, or can actually be healed by perspective. And an example is like, okay, if you're feeling really bad about something, and then you think about it like this: how would like when I'm 90, if I look back at this moment, and I think about like what I wish, like how would I feel, like how much would I give to be able to come back to this moment, and which things would I miss from this moment, like having a younger body, having the opportunities that I have now to be able to start building on something, and have decades to build on it, and all these things. And if you think things like that, those problems become very small, and like it's so much easier to overcome them if you think about it like that. And I challenged, actually, I talk a lot about chat GPT, and some people, like, they're like, oh, you always talk about AI, but they're actually so useful. They have so much, like, they can hallucinate, and they can be really annoying. But like, uh, yeah, I had a discussion with them, and I challenged it. Tell me one mental problem that can't be solved by like looking at it from another perspective. And it tried like a million times, but like the only thing it could come up with was malnutrition and things like that, like physical things. But you can challenge me if you want. Like, tell me any kind of mental distress, and I'll see if I can think of a perspective way to get out of it.
I mean, that's no, that's great. I mean, I actually just thought about that the other day of like, this moment I'm going to look back and miss just being this young, this point in time. Despite whatever we're going through, we are going to get older and things are going to change, and that we're going to look back and probably wish we were younger, right? So I love that, David. Yes, just want to thank you so much for coming on this podcast and sharing with us just these pearls of wisdom, all these great hacks and takeaways.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a
Thank
good
you,
time.
David.
Anytime.